Hey everyone, this is the Love of Cinema podcast. We like to talk movies. If you like to talk movies too, you come to the right place.
And then I told Ritesh that we should not make this film as a nostalgia to the people who know of him. We should make this film to make the younger generation aware of who Pastor Fene is, so that they go back and read his books. So
Right.
I have to tell this story in a way that attracts that generation to come and watch it, not in a way that I make it with a very feel good old world charm to it.
Munjya is one of the biggest hits of this year. A refreshing horror comedy that's rooted and steers away from templated storytelling. Its out of the box approach isn't too surprising to those familiar with the director's Marathi films. Whether it's a riveting crime thriller like Faster Fene, or a stirring coming of age film like Unad, or a madcap zombie comedy like Zombivli, director Aditya Sarpotdar has always told stories across genres, adopting a fresh approach. His films look and feel modern, they have a beating heart, and often leave behind an impression that has you revisiting them over time. This is Himanshu, and you're listening to the Love of Cinema podcast. But before moving on, an important reminder. If you enjoy organic conversations centered on Indian cinema, Love of Cinema podcast was created for people just like you. So if you enjoy the podcast, please do consider supporting the show. Love of Cinema podcast is my labor of love. And with every episode, I've attempted to create something that cinephiles will continue to find value, not just today, but over time as well. If you find value in the conversations on the pod, please do consider supporting the show. Your support will help me continue creating content with shelf life for fans of Indian cinema everywhere. You'll find the link to support the show in the show notes. You can also support the show directly from the podcast website. It's fast, it's easy, and your support is greatly appreciated. Also, if you like the episode, please share the episode on social media, as that will help other people discover the podcast. Coming back to today's episode, Aditya Sarpotdar is here. We chat about his films, his personal favorite films, challenges of making mass action dramas in Marathi, the hilarious auditions for zombies, and much more. Aditya is a fourth-generation filmmaker. The Sarpotdar family has been making movies since the early 20th century. So naturally, we also talked a bit about his family and their footprint on Pune's cultural map. When you're having fun, time flies. We ended up chatting for almost 4 hours, so I decided to split our conversation across 2 episodes. The concluding part will be dropping soon. Here's the first part of our chat. Hey Aditya, how are you doing?
All good, Himanshu.
Great, great. How are you feeling, by the way? I know you were down with viral.
I was. The weather in India is a little odd. It's
Yes.
been raining a lot. And every time it rains, every monsoon, the beginning of the monsoon, you will see some viral moving around. So
Yes,
I
yes.
got the bug, and it was not something major, but I just kind of needed a couple of days of rest. So I'm back
Right.
and I'm fine. I'm good to go.
Perfect, perfect. So first of all, I'm so glad to have you on the podcast because I have watched all of your feature films. The only film that I had not watched until recently was Unad, which you I just watched recently again, and I absolutely loved that film, and so I have a lot to talk about that film because I
Oh,
really
lovely.
loved that. I was I watched it twice because I wanted my wife to watch it too. So we really
Oh,
loved the
lovely.
film.
I'm so glad you're mentioning this because, I have said this earlier in another interview of mine that of all the work that I've done so far in maybe 16 years since I've made my first film, Unad has been the most special in terms of how I made it, the way we conceived it, the way we approached the whole production of the film, in terms of just a project that it's very close and very dear to me. So, a film like that. we were only hoping we went theatrical, and Geo decided to drop it on the platform. So I have, in my own way, whenever I get a chance, I do try to promote that movie and recommend it to whoever I can. So,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. I mean, I just tweeted about it a few days ago, and we are going to talk a lot about that film
Oh,
on this
lovely,
podcast. So
lovely. Thank
hopefully,
you so much.
that will help in spreading the word. And if I may
Yes.
say so, I think that's your best film, in my opinion. So, I
Oh,
really.
lovely. Thank you so much.
Hey, Aditya. So I wanted to start by, talking about the Sarpotdar family. I know that the
Oh,
Sarpotdar
okay.
family has been an integral part of the film business since early 20th century. Starting
Yeah.
with your great grandfather, who I believe began his career with Baburao Painter, the legendary Baburao Painter.
Yes. Yes.
And then he later started his own film company in 1920s, where
Yeah.
I
Right.
heard you say that Gurudat worked as an assistant later, few years down the
So,
line.
what had happened was Gurudat had come to Pune to work in Prabhat. He had joined the Prabhat Film Company, and my grandfather had met him, and he had maybe just, I think, at some point in his timeline in Pune, he had associated on one of our films, and that's how my grandfather met him. And my grandfather was very young then. So he was quite inspired, and then he saw Gurudat kind of go and be the great director he became later on, and his whole journey kind of inspired my grandfather to a point where when I was born, and so in Marathi there is this thing that you have a akshar that it comes, it's even an alphabet that comes to you through I think it's the way, what do you call it, play patrika. So, so I had G as an akshar, which is, and I was born on a Thursday. So I think it all came together very said, it has to be Gurudat. So, so that is how it was, man.
Yes, yes, yes. So could you tell us a little bit more about your family's journey in the film business? Because this is now you're the fourth generation Sarpotdar who's
Yeah,
making film,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So what I've known, what I've heard about it, what I've seen also is my great grandfather. They came from the families came from a very small town in Konkan. This is a town near Lanja, which is called Nandivli. It's a very small town. And from there, they traveled and they came to Pune and they settled in Pune. This is nearly more than 100 years ago. So they settled in Pune, and my great grandfather started uh, doing theater. And through theater, I think in those eras, in those times, from theater would be a lot of people moved on towards making movies, who were theater directors, theater producers. So he was one of those. There was a circle of people who he was working with, in which there was even Parke, there was Fatelal, Damles, all these uh, young filmmakers from Pune who started this whole cinema revolution, I think, where we all know of it. And he, I think, was the first entrant, who, in our family, who kind of sparked this for all of us. I remember he had whatever I'd read about him, and I'd found, because he was not alive when I was born. He passed away when he was very young. So he also, to support the film trade that he was in, he was asked by his friends to start this boarding house where they would offer accommodation and food. So in Pune, there is this famous Pune guest house on Lakshmi Road, which is then which he and his wife, my great grandmother, started in that
Oh,
those
wow.
those
Okay.
times. Yeah, and because they knew that the film business is not something that can give you regular income, this was the alternate source of income for them. So it was, I think, a very fascinating time then, where cinema and people making films were looked at as not the right, career choices that they made, to enter. It was looked down upon by the community there. So to kind of balance that, maybe they started this whole boarding and a mess, which was this Pune guest house, and a lot of people could come to eat the thali. So that they actually, not a lot of people know the thali system, where you say the rice plate was started by Pune guest house. The first ever rice plate that was invented was in Pune guest house. So they would have a proper, like, rice and a few vegetables, and they would offer that at a very low cost. So
Right.
uh, since when people who were filmmakers, actors would come to Pune, they would stay in Pune guest house. So there are very, very interesting stories about those times. You've just heard of really great, iconic actors and filmmakers who would come to shoot, and they used to say there. So he had started this as his film was, I think, passion. It was, I think, outright passion that kind of got him to cinema. He directed and wrote films from the early 20s, 1920s, for another film company. Then he started his own production house called the Aryan Film Company. It was a studio because in those eras you used to have studio systems, right? So he had a studio that he started, which was in 1927. He made his first film. And from then onwards, I think he made around about 35 plus silent movies. So Lalita Pawar, the great Lalita Pawar, the actor, was made a debut in his films because I heard this
Nice.
story, and I don't know how much of it is true, but I know of this vaguely that she used to work with our family. She used to, I think, be there to take care of his kids, and he had seen her, and she was had a flair of of a drama. So he kind of asked her to stand in front of the camera, and she really did well. And she took off from there as an actor, a child actor, and then she kind of made her way as a legendary, I think, film actor in Hindi cinema. But I think these are a lot of actors. Then in those eras, you had Balji Bhandarkar come in later, but the beginning of their journeys all was looking up to these filmmakers who started in the 20s. So he was one of those, and unfortunately, he passed away really young uh, due to an illness. And when he passed away, then my great grandmother had 7 kids, so she had to kind of take care of them. But somehow, maybe this whole connection with the industry because of Pune Guest House, the connection with the film making community because of the guest house kind of always kept on because she maintained those relationships. So my grandfather had 2 elder brothers, 2 younger brothers. So he somehow had, and the brothers also made their films. They all were producers. So my grandfather's eldest brother produced, his the other brother produced. So they were all in a certain way somewhere connected to the film industry. My grandfather's sister, Usha Banerjee, she was on a very big post in NSD in Delhi. If you ask any NSD actors, right from Nasir sir to anybody about her, they all know her very fondly. So she was there in different positions. I think she was there for a long time. So they were all connected to cinema through to art, to cinema, to theater, you name it. So I think it's one of those families, where this is the business you know of, and then you kind of attempt it. So then after that, in my dad generation, my dad was the only one who kind of went ahead and took this on. He was from a time where uh, I think this whole digital revolution was coming up, and the television network and the channels were really booming. So he set up ETV network, ETV Marathi, which was one of the first Marathi channels to start broadcasting in the early 2000s, late 1990s. So he was in RFC, Ramoji Film City, Hyderabad. He was there. He spent a long time there setting up ETV Marathi, setting up this whole pipeline of shows and networks. And before that, he used to make corporate videos and ad films for a lot of companies in Pune and around. About so, I had started working with him then. I had started assisting, going out on shoots, shooting these very interesting corporate videos for Tata Motors. For there were a lot of companies in Pimpri Chinchwad near Pune, in those times, which needed these services. And Pune, I think, was a major industrial hub, which was kind of setting it up itself as a company. A lot of companies started coming up there. So I remember in the early 2000s, I think 2000, 2001, when I was just entering into, I was in college, 11th. I remember going and shooting my first corporate video then because he said, okay, now you've been around enough, just go and do it.
Right.
So I was 16. So I had gone and made this whole commercial video about how from a nut bolt to a final car, how this Indica was made, the Tata Indica. And I'd done this whole series of the production of the car. So they had used that video to send it to all their dealers all over India. And I was pretty excited then because, at 16, you kind of attempt this, you shoot, you edit, you put music on it, you do voiceovers and you package it. Then you go and present it in front of a corporate company and a team there who give their feedback. So they used to look at me and they used to wonder, okay, why is he so young? You know what? And why is he making this? So it was a very interesting time. But I remember a very big part of me growing up was also one of the businesses that we ran, which was the Alka Talkie from Pune. You have to know about Alka Talkie.
Yes,
And
absolutely. A landmark. Yeah.
yeah, and we had that theater for around 15 to 20 years. We ran that theater for those many years. So I remember since being a kid, I have
During
been
what time was
going.
this, Aditya, that you guys were running
This is
the
the 90s, the 90s,
90s? Okay.
the whole of 90s. I think from the late 80s to the whole of 90s. So I clearly remember going to the theater after school hours, spending a lot of time in the theater there, kind of just hanging out at the ticket window, at the manager's cabin, behind the screen, like, or are in the canteen. So I have seen a lot of movies, man, there. And I have in school kind of arranged these groups of kids my age. We used to do these outings. I used to take them. My birthday treat used to be we'll go and watch some kids movie, and I used to take them. And
Awesome.
I very fondly remember kind of being in the projection room a lot, where it used to be very fascinating to see in those eras. They used to have these old reels that used to come in. There was never any digital hard disks. Then the films used to come in reels and stacks. So there used to be this guy who projectionist used to connect film together when the reels used to play, and then he used to wind them up and then load them back, and then those same reels, maybe 7 to 10 cans, whatever those were, used to go back on a cycle. They used to be tied on the carrier behind, and there used to be this guy who used to shuttle them around. Because if there was one film running in Pune, there was to be one print, and there used to be maybe three shows in a day. So that same print used to move from one theater to the other, to the other, to the other, when it used to come back. So I even have done that at some point of time, where shuttling, helping the family do some work. But I do remember, having the access to a theater like that opened me up to watching so many movies. And Alka was
Right.
known to play Hollywood films, films,
Yes, yes. It played
mainly English
classics
movies.
as well as, yes, yes.
Yeah, so I do remember kind of watching my first initial my introduction to English cinema to Hollywood was, I think, through Alka. So I can't even remember how many movies I've seen there. It's can't I do remember very clearly a few films, the experience of watching a few films. Like I do remember in those times I had seen Lord of the Rings. If you can see the poster right behind me, so Lord of the Rings is one of my favorite films, and it released in the period of Ganesh festival. And I still remember the last day, I think fifth day of Ganpati. I was sitting in the theater, and there's this whole dhol tasha being played outside the theater. And in those eras, times, the sound used to leak in. So I could not listen to the film. The background score to the whole climax of this film is Dhol Tasha for me. So, so I remember watching the movie like this. I do remember even the Titanic. The Titanic was a massive hit, and I remember people were we had some. I think I had brought in my friends because I thought we could get tickets, and there were some 20 of them, and the theater was sold out. So we actually called a wedding decorator, and we asked him to give us some chairs, which we lined up in the aisles so that people just could sit and watch the movie. So a lot of crazy just memories of this theater. But yeah, so that was how we were connected to the distribution, production, and the whole filmmaking business.
Excellent. And you said you started assisting your dad and you started making corporate films and short films.
Yeah.
Did you assist any other filmmaker before making your
So yeah,
first film?
yes. So what this was when I was college. I could not. I was told, and I do agree now in hindsight, that you need to complete your graduation. You need to finish, get a degree first, do whatever you want, but at least get a basic degree. So I got myself into BMCC college, and in BMCC, I got that bandwidth, and I'm so thankful to them even today that they gave me that full free hand that you do whatever you want, just attend the exam, give the papers, right, and pass in all of them, so that we kind of can push you ahead. But if whatever I have done, like as an assistant, then making these corporate videos and all these films, was possible when I was in college, and I could not leave Pune, so I was helping dad out then making films, and then after I graduated and passed out, I moved to Hyderabad and I joined Ramoji Film City there, just to learn, the whole hands-on experience and making movies, because that at those in those times the film city was quite buzzing. A lot of shoots used to happen there. A lot of Hindi film shoots and Tamil, Telugu, you name it, they used to all being shot there. So you had access
These
to a
are
lot
the
of film
early
sets.
2000s?
The early 2000s. You had a a lot of access to film shoots. As a employee there, I could walk onto any film shoot, just stand there, watch a film being shot. I had an access to the studios. I had an access to the VFX unit there called Maya. I had an access to uh, every department. So my intent there was to go and learn about movies. And I did get a very first-hand experience at witnessing a lot of films being made, right from recordings to even art directors kind of making sets in the studio floors. So I could get a sense of, get a vibe, of all of that. After which I then came to Mumbai, and there I started working as an assistant to Abhinay Dev. Abhinay Dev is the art filmmaker that he is Mr. Ramesh Dev's son, and a very prolific art filmmaker. So I assisted him for a
Yes.
while, and then after that, I was kind of already writing my movie when at RSCT. So I had decided I'm going to kind of make my first film pretty soon. So I had a script ready, and my dad said, "Okay, give it a shot. Go narrate it to actors. You have actors on board. I will produce it." So then I took the film to a lot of actors. Thankfully, the actors liked it. They said yes, and then that's how the whole journey to my first film started. I think I was 23 at that time when I started making Udadal. Yeah.
Right, right. So you made Uladhal and Classmates, and both of those films, your first two films, were success, right?
So
Both of
yeah, so Udadal actually, because it was the first film, and it did really well because also of the song that was in it. It was Ajay Atul's music. Even with Ajay Atul, I have really fond memories because they used to play Dol Tasha in my very close Ganpati Mandal. And those who are from Pune know the Guruji Talim Mandal. It is the
yes,
third most respected, Mana Sa Tisra Ganpati people call it, the third most respected Ganesh Mandal in Pune. So we were very closely related because my grandfather, my dad was a big part of this whole operations of the Mandal. So every Ganesh Chaturthi and Anand Chaturdashi, we used to go there for the procession. And Ajay Atul, I remember when I was young, they were also very young. They were starting out. They used to come and play Dol Tasha there. So I knew them since then. So when I did my first film, they said we have to have a Ganesh Ganpati song in the film there. So then Deva Tusha Daryalu was a song that, Moria Moria was a song that they made for my first film. And that song became such a massive hit that, when a song does really well, it kind of gets the attention of the audience to see what the film is. And in those times, I remember Uradal had the biggest cast that you could think of, which were all big actors in the mid 2008, 2007. So it was this big star cast movie with great music and a lot of fun. So that really worked for the film. And yeah, that's how it all started.
the next movie, Aditya, that I really want to talk about is Narbachi Wadi. And I love
Yeah,
that film. It's a beautiful, emotional comedy drama. It sort of harks back to Malgudi days. Narba also
yeah,
has some shades of like Pula's Antu Barwa. And so
yeah,
it's great to watch. The movie is dedicated to Dulal Guha, who, for those who aren't familiar with the name,
yes,
was a
yes,
filmmaker who made films in the 70s.
yeah,
And by the way, he made a film called Dhua, a suspense thriller with
yes.
Rakhi and Mithun, which is a favorite film of mine. But
Oh yeah.
can you tell us more about that particular dedication and how
So
Narbachi Wadi came about?
I'll tell you what. It's a very personal story that I've not kind of spoken about a lot because nobody's asked me this question. So after Uladhal and that period, I lost my dad in 2010, and he passed away due to an illness. So, for me, I had started out my career assisting him, then working with him. We had a lot of plans to set up a production company. He wanted to revive the R&D company, which my great grandfather had set up, and we really were kind of working towards it. Kind of producing, directing, setting up projects. And after Uladhal, I was kind of all guns blazing, kind of getting things on, and he fell ill, and he just kind of, it was too sudden for all of us to even kind of understand what had happened. So when he passed away, for a long time, I did not work because for me, I lost a lot of confidence in just kind of working, going out there and doing it all by myself. And I remember I was 26 when he passed, 25 when he passed away. So for me, it was kind of, I was too young to even understand that I had to take kind of the responsibility of the whole family because I am the only son. I have a younger sister, but she was too young, that point of time, and I had to. She was in college still, I think. So for me, it was very, very important that I had to get back to work, but I was not sure what I wanted to do because it was a very odd time in my life then. And and I was kind of figuring out I was to come to Mumbai, I was to meet producers, a lot of people I met, but things didn't work out. And one day it was the monsoons, I think around the same time. I was driving back to Pune, not being able to kind of set up anything exciting. And I got a call from a production company called the Film Farm Company. And Pintu Guha, who's the son of Dulal Guha, he was the producer of the film. So he called, he said, I want to meet you, I have this idea for you. And I went and he he made me meet Guru Thakur because Guru was writing the film. I knew of Guru because Guru had written for me also. And Guru narrated me this idea, what was in me. And Narbachi Wadi is a story adapted from a very iconic play, which was a Bengali play, which was directed and performed by Manoj Mitra. And I saw the play also. I read the book that it was printed on, and then I realized there was a film. This was called Banchara Mere Bagan. There's a film that was also made on this by Tapan Sinha. So it and it's very funny, you know, if you see there are actors like Amir Khan who were in the film. That same role is played by Vikas Kadam in my film. And very iconic actors then in that movie. So I had seen all of this and I said, man, what a brilliant story this is because that play also is very iconic in Bengal. So I said, I have to attempt this. And I convinced them that I would be the right director for it. And they got convinced. And I told them the first time I'd read it, I said, I see this as Malgudi Days because I remember watching Malgudi Days very fondly as a kid. And I somehow felt that style of narratives were lost. You know, we were not making any of those because I think we had never found stories that so organically went towards these kind of storytelling. And I felt, you know, right from Pula to even old Marathi cinema also came from that film, you know, where you would Chamchi Ai and all those films also had that very old world charm to them. There was a certain rhythm to storytelling, there was a certain pace to it. It was a little laid back, it was very immersive. So I said, I want to attempt this. And they aligned with my vision, and that was it. And I was very sure, you know, when I started out, I said, if there's any actor I can see, when I read that three-pager itself, I was dead sure. I said, if Mr. Dilip Prabhakar says no to this film, I don't think I'm going to make it because I can't see anyone else but him playing Narba. So that's how it started, I think. And yeah, one more name that is a very well-known filmmaker who's attached to this film is Basu Chatterjee.
Yes, yes.
So Basuda
He
is
presented
also
the film.
a presenter on the film, and he's an iconic filmmaker. So I think I was pretty, I think, lucky to be a director of a film that is presented by such a big guy.
And Aditya, how do you direct Dilip Prabhakar, you know, who is essentially a walking, talking institution, like quote unquote
He
director?
is he is. I think he was fascinating, man. He has this extremely infectious, childlike enthusiasm about it. It is highly infectious because the minute you meet him, you realize that his passion, his dedication, his commitment to any work he takes up is top notch. You know, but while approaching it, he makes the whole process so much fun and enjoyable. You know, and it's not only as a director and an actor that we feel this. Everyone on set has the same vibe about it. It may be a guy serving him tea, which could be a spot boy, to a production guy. He will make everyone feel like, you know, they need to just enjoy this whole process, you know, of making movies. And I remember when I first went to narrate the film to him, he said, okay, narration and all we'll do. Let's go and have some nice fish thali. So he took us to this fish curry rice in Pune. And we had some amazing food. We chatted over it. He had read the script though. And he said, I think I have no doubts. I'm going to do this. And it's exciting. So he just was kind of trying to, my first interaction with him, he was trying to understand what my vision of it is. And I think he loved it. But I will also tell you this, that, you know, when you're working with an actor like him, you have seen so much of his variety of work he's done, you know. So you're trying to wonder what different will you offer him now? Because what is it that he's not done? And with him, then we aged him. So he joked about it. He said, you know, ever since I've been young, I've been playing old men. So everybody thinks I have always been old, but it was not the case. And we have shown these three different age stages of him because that's how in the film he ages. And eventually he's this extremely old man. But when I did my look test, I remember he his just body language is switched. He's so good with it. I just told him that okay, you are at this age, and he could drop his shoulders. He could become frail. He could just kind of look that man, that part, 110-year-old guy. So he's phenomenal to work with. He's so disciplined. I remember still when I had handed him the script and I kind of met him a month later before shoot. He had all these notes made, on every page, and he said, "I need your time. We don't need to sit. I have so many questions. I need to sort them out." So me and him sat every day after shoot. We used to shoot in Konkan. After shoot, I used to go meet him. He used to be like, "Okay, you go freshen up, come and meet me." So when I used to go and meet him in his room, he used to have a bath. He used to be wearing this crisp white kurta pajama, sitting in his room waiting for me. Then I used to go. Then he used to have these questions about tomorrow's shoot. And he used to come so well prepared. So I used to be worried sometimes that when the other actors in front of him are not, then how is he going to manage? But he used to be, I think, having fun while between shots also. So I remember he used to sit with his spray, where you have that water spray which the makeup team uses. So he used to have that spray and spray it around these small little kittens who used to be there and run behind them, and then catch hold of these locals and send them for some very funny, silly errands. That that tree has. It seems like it's got some really amazing nariyal. So go, please. Can you get it? So they used to very lovingly go climb up and bring them down. Fourth, fifth day later, those people used to see him and some turn away and walk back. So he used to tell me, okay, now they don't come near me because I always put them to work. So we used to laugh about it. I said, "Okay, slowly you're going to kind of get this whole town away from us and they're going to hate us because you make them all do work." But used to enjoy it, man. And I think I had a great time shooting that film. I remember, and I'll tell you this memory of mine, which I have not seen happen with any actor. I remember when we finished shooting that movie. I finished shooting that movie, I think in 36 days, 37 days. 33rd day of shoot or 34th day of shoot was his last day of shoot. And we shot this film at a stretch without a break. And on that day, when he came to deliver his last scene, and I was on the camera, and he was shooting this one last shot of it. And on the mic, I just said, "Oh, this is his last shot. So, sir, all the best." And he went and he delivered the shot. And I said, "Okay." And I was looking at him. I did not know what was happening behind me. And the minute I said okay, I could hear this loud cheer and clapping. And I turned behind to see the whole unit. Everyone had gathered there just to watch him. And they all cheered for him. And I realized, you know what, he'd earned that. He'd kind of over those 34 days, he'd made that name for himself, or he'd earned that love. And everybody got emotional. We took pictures and we said, okay, it's done. We couldn't believe it. But then that's how I find ways to work with him. In Faster Fene, I worked with him again. I found a way. I told my writer then, Sudhir, I want to get Dilip Prabhakar in this film also. Let's find a way. And that's how we cracked this Bhara Bhagavat character. But, and I will tell you this, even right now, I am editing my web series for Hotstar in which he's in it. So it is my third time I worked with him. But yeah, man, an actor that at the at any point of time during any project, if I get an opportunity that I see him in it, I will go to him, and I'm so very well know that he will just say yes and he'll say, "Okay, it's you doing it, I'll do it."
It fits right into that character so much because he's such a good
Yeah,
actor, right? Because he's able to bring
yeah,
out each of those shades of Narba. Narba is also innocent. He's a good person, but there is also a little cunningness to him, and
yeah,
he
yeah,
has seen quite a few monsoons, so he knows what the world
yeah.
is about. So, all those shades, he brings them out so beautifully and so subtly.
He does.
It's amazing. And what was it like working with Manoj Joshi? I mean, who's just a tremendous actor.
Man, Manoj Joshi also is somebody who's done a lot of theatre, and he
Yeah,
used to do
absolutely.
Chanakya then. He had called me to watch his play Chanakya. He said, you casting me, but I feel you should come and watch my play, watch me perform on stage." So I said, "Man, sir, honestly, I don't need to see you perform because I've seen you perform in so many films that you're an institution in yourself." He said, "But no, no, you'll enjoy this. Come." And I had gone to see that play, and he does it single-handedly, man. He carries this, what an aura he has on stage and how commanding he is. I was mesmerized, and then I met him and I said, "Sir, what you've done there, this is a different space, different world." He said, "No, I don't mind. I completely understand." And he was very excited to play the double role in it because he's also the father who dies, and then it's the son who comes. He was very excited to do it. So what fun I had with him and Dilip Bhai kind of act together, because both come from very different schools of acting, but both understand cinema so well. So whenever they kind of had a scene together, there used to be such great improvisation that used to happen
Right. They play off each
in the
other.
rehearsal, completely in the rehearsal. And most of their scenes together, there's also Nikhil Ratnapar, who's Manoj Joshi's this right hand man,
Yeah, yeah,
who's Man
absolutely.
Friday.
Sidekick. Yeah, yeah.
So he used to butt in with some reactions and some one-liners in it, and we used to have a blast. So shooting that film, the shoot of it has been fun, majorly because of the fact that between shoots we used to um, do have our readings. Between shoots we used to do our rehearsals, and they used to be a lot more fun because I have to give my actors. I'd always told them, you're such great actors. I don't need to tell you how to perform. I just want to kind of direct you in a direction that I think is right for this film. So I would want you to go crazy, go all out. When you get a scene, just let's rehearse the way you think is the right way, and you never know where we'll end up. And the film, what it is today, is all because I've had such great talent working on it, and they all became the characters, but they also added so much of themselves to it. What they were good at. And I'm not talking about only Manoj and Nikhil and Dilip Bhai. I'm talking about all these smaller characters also who came, like Atul Parchure, Bhau Kadam, Kishori Shane. A lot of these smaller
Kamlesh Sawant is
actors.
there too, right?
Kamlesh Sawant is there. Vikas Kadam, Jyoti Malchi. All of these actors in their small little ways. They just wanted to be a part of this film. And I think, this whole idea, I still remember it's now, it's been 12 years since that film released. So I'm kind of 13 years ago, I made the film. I was very young then. I was all of, I think, 27, 28 when I made that film. All these guys were nearly twice my age or more. So when I used to direct them, I used to feel, man, they have as much as experience as my age,
Mm.
in the industry. But the fact that they totally trust and believe what my vision to the film is, I felt overwhelmed there, and I felt so thankful, to all of them, to this whole process. So I would honestly, much I'll say, I am very lucky to have had access to such great actors at a very, very early stage in my life. Yeah.
Was there any consideration to cast Joshi as the third generation as well?
No.
Or
See,
that
well,
would have been
third
way too
generation.
confusing.
Yeah, that would have been, and then we would have had to kind of, really had to do a double role thing, and we had to do a picture in
Right,
picture and all
right,
of that. But
right.
also the third generation did not need him to be the way he was. The first generation, he was this cunning guy, and the
Good point.
son actually just carried forward that whole cunningness of him, in a different, very lawyer-like avatar. That he felt he was the good man, but that the heart was always extremely greedy, at that point of time. But his son was an idiot, a village idiot. So he was a very different character altogether. Yeah.
Aditya, Faster Fene, the film, it plays like a genesis story of the widely loved, Marathi juvenile fiction
Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
I remember back in 2017 when the film came out, I remember watching it
Hmm.
back then. For a lack of a better word, it felt modern. You know what I mean? The beats, the
Oh, right.
pacing, the
Right.
treatment, the drone shots,
Right.
everything about it
Yeah.
felt, quote unquote modern.
I'll tell you what I realized when I wanted to make that film. I remember I had finished making Classmates, and I had a preview of Classmates. And for that preview, I had invited Ritesh and Janelia. And they had seen the film and they had loved the film. They came out and they said, Ritesh said, I want to make something with you. Let's do something together. Let's meet up in a couple of weeks and we'll jam. And a couple of weeks later, there was these Mikta Awards, which used to happen overseas. So we were all in Dubai, and I met him again there at in the lobby, hotel lobby, and he said, "Okay, I have time. Let's chat." So we just met up, and he said, "What do you like? What do you want to do? What is your? Is there something that you want to make?" And I told him that I just read Faster Fene a few weeks ago. Like I found a book in my library, and I said, "Oh, this I still have." And I just had flipped through it. So I told him, I was thinking about this, that we have always known this character through the books that we've read of his. I remember watching a serial that Sumit Raghavan starred in, but I was too young then to even have a clear memory of it. So I said the last content that has been made on this book has been 30 years, nearly 30 years ago. In 30 years, nobody's attempted to revive this. So I feel the need to, and I think we should. So he got so excited by it. He said, "Okay, done. I'm with you on this. Let's get the rights for the book." The day he got the rights, the whole process, of getting the rights and through going through all these legalities was kind of a 6, 7 month process. So I realized in that 7 months, hardly the kids I would meet, the youngsters I would meet, had no idea what Faster Penny was. Faster Penny was this character that a 35 plus age group was aware of, but a 35 under age group had no idea. The current generation I'm talking about. And I felt so odd about this because I felt this character, this boy was written for that age group. He was not written for them not to know about him. So
Yeah,
why do they
it's
not
a
know about
juvenile
him?
fiction. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was quite shocked, and and then I told Ritesh that okay, we should not make this film as a nostalgia to the people who know of him. We should make this film to make the younger generation aware of who Pastor Fene is, so that they go back and read his books. So
Right.
I have to tell this story in a way that attracts that generation to come and watch, not in a way that I make it with a very feel good old world charm to it. Because see, that was an easier way to make it. You could show first of it the way he was, doing half shots and casting a very young boy, 13-year-old boy, who was slim, who looked like that, and to make it, feel also that the film is set in that old world. So I know that Chintu, as a film that had released in Marathi, also kind of was attempted in that space. Shara had come by then. Shara was attempted in that space, which was period, which was, So I realized that these films eventually appeal to a little more mature audience. Although they talk about issues and subjects that are meant for the younger generation. But because of that tone, the setup, the world, I think the younger generation just does not feel that is their cinema. So I said, I want to go all out in making Fast and Furious a fun film, a crazy film, and a very modern film. And that's what happened. When we made the film, my audience was all youngsters who came just to watch him do talk, just to see him ride this cycle. Because I also cast Ameya because I knew Ameya at that point of time had created this uh, relatability with his show, Dil Dosti Duniadari. I always also saw him as Pastor Fene because I remember when I had seen this book cover and the sketch of Pastor Fene, this boy with dimples and a certain hairstyle, it so reminded me of Amir. So I remember talking to Ritesh about this and my writer Shitij, and I said, Amir is not 13 anymore. I think Amir is my right choice because I know my younger generation would come to the theaters to watch him play faster Friday. Let's kind of up his age a bit. Let's make him an 18-year-old. And let's kind of, then if he's an 18-year-old, then the film also has to kind of seem like a boy detective film and a teenage boy detective film. So I think the tone of the film was set because of all of this.
And can you speak a little bit to Girish Kulkarni's casting?
So that's a very, very, very interesting casting. So Girish, till the very last minute of shooting, was not cast on that film because he was not sure about doing the film, And the main reason for that was he said, as a villain, I don't ever see myself. He said, you're casting a proper villain, you want to cast a bad guy. And in Marathi, I've never played a bad guy because he said, I've always been this village local simpleton. And I've never played somebody who's got this swag and this authority and this, clout and this darkness about him. So I said, Girish, I don't know why I always felt that you could carry this really well. And he never saw it in that sense. So we started shooting the film. We already started shooting, and I kept his sequence in the very end. So I remember me and my writer were shooting in Pune in Monday. There's an action sequence of Faster Fene. He's running around Monday, and that we wrapped up. And I said, Shitij, we have to shoot with this Appa character in the next 3 days. So I have to cast Girish now, and there's nobody else I want but him. So let's go. Let's get hold of him. Let's show him some footage, and let's convince him. So I called him and I said, Girish, where are you? He said, I'm in Pune. I said, it's 10:30 in the night, but I'm going to come and meet you. We said, okay, come, drop in. And I went, I met him, and I said, you have to do this. And he somehow eventually realized that we waited for him so long that we just did not want no for an answer. So he gave in because of that. Said, okay, finally, okay, I'm doing it for you guys. But then when he came on board, he just asked me a few questions as to how you see him, how you want him. And I said, see, you're eventually the villain of an 18-year-old boy. You have to talk to him differently. it's all a mental game because physically you don't match. You're stronger than him. You're older than him. You have more pure strength in terms of manpower also that's around you. He's a timid. This so it has to be a battle of wits. It has to be a battle of how whose mind is stronger. So you have to deal with him and talk to him in a way where you kind of first defeat him there mentally, that he kind of crumbles there, and then that's your larger victory. So the way he interacts with Fastopane, the dialogue, the way he treated him, the way he kind of really tries to play on his mind was Girish's approach. But Girish aced it, man. The day that he came, he wore that outfit, and I had a trick. I spoke to him much later about this. Um I realized that Girish, when you really kind of, I wouldn't say piss him off, when you really tick him off, when you kind of nudge him or push him a little bit,
Right.
he kind of can lose his, he can lose his patience. Otherwise, he's a saint. Otherwise he's very calm. He's very quiet. So I said, how do I do this to him every day? I can't do this. So I said, let's give him what he hates. He said, I don't like wearing lenses. I said, I want you to wear lenses. He said, but why? I said, I see his eyes are of a different color. He said, what are you going to achieve with that? I said, yes, I just see him with lighter eyes. I just feel that, with those lighter eyes, it might just make the character look, and you always felt I don't look like a villain. Maybe he might look like a villain. So Giri just gave in, because again, I was extremely adamant. My intention to give him those lenses was that whenever he wore those lenses, he got very irritated, at how they felt. Because he was never used to wearing lenses. So when he used to walk on set, he used to walk on set a little upset at what was happening physically with him. So, when I used to give him these scenes, I used to see that maybe irritation come out through his performance. And I told him this the last day of shoot. I said, Girish, you can take those lenses off. He said, I'm going to take them off, pack them up, and throw them somewhere off because I don't want to see them again ever. So I said, that's exactly why I give you those lenses. I wanted to piss you off by giving you these lenses because I knew that I wanted a version of you to play this part, which was not the nice guy. And he said, man, you should have just told me. I would have. I'm an actor. I would have done it. I said, it's not that. In my way, kind of pick it in you. So I remember the first scene he ever did was a scene in the bus, and he's in the bus, and the bus is moving, and they trap Amir and his sidekick in it, and he kind of his men and him have kind of trapped him in the bus, and it's a long scene. It was a 5-page scene because it's only Girish talking, only Girish talking. So he gives his philosophy of who he was and how he landed up there, and now how Amaya kind of Pastor Fene butting into his business is a problem to him, and there's a long dialogue. So I told Girish, we are in a moving bus. We are going to do all of this. You want multiple takes, cuts? We will do. We'll break it down. He said, no, just roll. I'm going to give it in one go, and I'm going to do it my way. So okay, we said, great. Let surprise me, Girish. So I am sitting on the monitor with this portable monitor in the bus, and there are two cameras which have been mounted, and the bus goes, and he just kind of goes at it, and I could not believe my eyes that his interpretation of that character was so awesome. I was so engrossed in watching the shot that I did not realize what it was over. I did not realize anything. I did not see anything else. I was just watching him. I was just watching him perform. And then eventually his lines got over. The scene ended. And then he looked at me and he said, aren't you going to say cut? And I said, oh, cut, cut, cut. I'm so sorry. And I said, Girish, man, you killed it. You aced it. So that is where we realized we had found our villain and he had found his tone. But I think that's the sign of a good actor. When you have a good actor who kind of eventually comes on board and then he makes the character his own. It's always a blend. I've always told a lot of these new actors I work with that whenever you approach a character, when you approach any character, you have been cast in that part because there's something about you that is working for it. So when you become the character, don't lose yourself entirely. Keep what's also yours and blend it with what the character has to be. So make that character your version and don't try to kind of take yourself completely out of it and make a complete different character to life, because that is not something that ever works. So Girish did that, he brought himself and this devilish evil character of Appa to it, and he won a lot of awards for it. And I think what Pastor Fene today whatever love the film has got, a lot of it also credit goes to how Girish aced the villain in the film.
Yeah, I remember once chatting with Nikhil Mazan on the podcast, and he told me that the reason why Girish Kulkarni is such a great actor is because he did a lot of radio before, and so he
Hmm.
he has this thing with voice and
Yeah,
pauses,
yeah.
and that even if there are no visuals, he can create that atmosphere, he can create that air, and that lends such a big edge to a performance.
But also I feel, and I've over all these years, I've seen one thing that all the good actors, have great command over language, and
Absolutely
that's one thing that is undeniable. You name it, right from Mr. Bachchan
right.
to a Manoj Bajpayee to you name it, to Nasir sir, to anybody.
Yeah, Nana
They
Patekar.
have great command. Nana Patekar, they have great command over language. So Girish was one of those guys who has great command over language. And when you have this whole library of words and phrases and nuances to kind of really play at your disposal, Girish knows how to use them really well. So with radio and with this command over the language, and because he's also a great writer, he's a very good writer. I think he's one of the best writers we have. So all of that kind of a combination works really well for him. And he knows how to kind of balance and work what where. So yeah, completely agree with Nikhil's point of view also. I am sure every actor has his own way of approaching a character.
Yes.
But as a director, you need to figure that out. And that you figure it out in the first 2, 3 days of shoot. And that's the job also, I think, greatly of a director is when he understands how to work with a certain psyche and a certain temperament and how to kind of really manipulate it to get your best performance. Like
Right.
I think you have to understand, read, and you have to read people really well. And I realized that I think that in the first 3 days of my shoot is always about kind of judging with what process works better. And you can never discuss it out with them. It's always something you internalize. You have to find your way with every actor where you communicate to them and you get them to do what you want while they also believe they're doing what they want. So it's a very interesting phase a director is in. And I think if in those first 3 days, if he can crack it, the process with the actor, then they end up doing really good work. But if he does not crack it, then till the very end, you're always at loggerheads, trying to figure out who wants to do what, and you never kind of get the right performance. So yeah, I think it's. I'm sure very subconsciously every director does it. I'm sure Nikhil does it. I'm sure all these guys you've spoken to have their own way of handling. You never kind of really voice it out because with very few actors you identify and you notice and you realize it. But with some actors, you kind of just like you have to find it. You have to find your tricks. You have to find those and you have to pull them out of the hat. You have to kind of know you have to do a few silly, crazy, or sometimes extremely outrageous things to get the performance you need.
You got to be able to read their process and kind of get a
Yeah,
feel.
yeah, yeah.
Nikhil, the next one that you did was Zombivli, mass action drama. And
Yep,
I'm guessing that making this was a lot of fun because you got to do like
yep,
old school South style mass. The
yep,
film as
totally.
well, if I'm not mistaken.
See, I'll tell you what had happened with that film. We released at a point where we had hardly promoted. So the box office of the film was not what we expected. Also, because to a greater extent, the film went to Geo, and Geo was starting out. I think it was one of the first films that they had distributed. So Geo, in a way, just kind of went all out distributing the film, hoping or maybe believing in the fact that the film doesn't need a lot of promotion, and there's an audience that will just kind of turn up, which does not happen and did not happen then. Which I think I'm sure Ritesh realized when he made his next film, Wade. So he went all out promoting the film. I remember him telling me also, okay, man, we made a big mistake during Mauli. We assume people will come. But that doesn't happen. We have to go take the film to them. So that was, I think, something that I still today regret that Mauli, we did not give it our best shot in terms of marketing and promotion. But I will tell you this, that, making the film, and as you rightly said, making the film was a whole lot of fun because, you hardly get a chance as a director to do scale in Marathi and to do scale at a point where you have the best of the best to work for you. So you also kind of learn with them, their process, the action that we did. I think nobody had done that kind of action in Marathi. So it was great to learn and even to interact with these guys who came from down south. and my action director was this guy called Ravi Varman. So he wasn't he had this crazy energy about him on set, and he used to come, he used to edit. So while we used to shoot, he used to have this guy editing the sequence with him. Then between takes, he used to sit, he used to edit himself, get the shots together, show me how he's kind of planning the sequence, and then go back and shoot. Mad energy. And with him, I remember very clearly that Ritesh and me had this discussion that for us and for him, action was very important, because he said that, I'm doing my Hindi films, but I don't get to do what I want to do. And I want to do something that's a little more grittier, a little more, more macho. And that's why this whole South, the hero's image kind of is set up. So we said, okay, let's go all out and make it. So we wanted to stay true to the form. I said, okay, if we are going to attempt this, we are not going to try to make a film that makes a lot of sense. But while we are attempting that, get put ourselves into a genre that is just supposed to be enjoyed. We don't really kind of, it's an experience movie. So I said, we are going to go. And I remember when we had kind of our first screening, we had the industry come and watch the film. So all the action sequences, that we had, and we had a lot of team members. There were a lot of people whistling, shouting, yelling, just having a crazy time. So I realized that, in the theaters, when you kind of have a packed audience and you watch such films, like you take any Rajnikant film for that matter, you take any South Indian film. When you watch a film like that in a packed theater, when people are hooting, clapping, whistling, the vibe is very different
Yeah,
of that film.
it's a community experience. Yeah.
Completely. So I felt, that is what Molly needed. That community building itself to to have those moments, enjoy those moments.
I enjoyed the film. I mean, I think that Ritesh doesn't get enough credit as an action hero because he's so good
Yeah,
at comedy and drama. But
yeah,
I think those two films, Lay Bhari and this one,
yeah, yeah,
he really did a great job with the action. And I think it was great to see
yeah,
him do action too, because at that point of time, he was doing something that was against the grain for him because he had not
yeah,
done
yeah.
it so
Totally,
far. So it was a
totally,
great film, and I
totally.
absolutely enjoyed Mowgli and the twist
It
and
the whole attempt. I'll tell you what, Evancho, the idea was to make a film that you have fun watching.
right.
It's as simple as that. It is not a film that kind of
It's a
teaches
mass film,
you.
right?
Yeah, it doesn't teach you about life, and it doesn't give you necessarily kind of give you a great insight about a great story. It is purely meant to be. So when you say a mass films work because their emotions are at grassroots level the most identifiable and easy to relate to. So a film like a Mauli is made for the lowest common denominator of an audience, and it is supposed to be enjoyed and watched in a certain single screen with that fervor. So it was made with that intent. But then I realized later on when the film got dubbed and released on Sony Setbacks in the Hindi version, I got a lot of calls where people still, like when I was doing my recce I'll tell you where I'd gone. I had gone to north of Delhi, and people were again talking to me, and I was just telling them, okay, this is the film I've made. That's a film. This is way before Munjya, and I was making only Marathi films. And they said, Mauli, you've directed? They said, yes. They said, we love that movie. I said, where do you watch it? They said, very, very big fans of that film. We watched the Hindi version of it. So that film has kind of found its audience over a period of time.
Aditya, do you think there is a reason why these mass action films that have a great following in the South and
Yeah.
even in the cow belt and everything, but for some reason in Marathi audiences, I don't think they have that kind of a pull. Is that because we don't have like a star kind of culture that these regional films do, or are there many other reasons to that?
Yeah, yeah, it's majorly that. See, with Ritesh, we could attempt amount, because I still feel
You need a
he
star, right?
has a bit of a star value to him in Marathi. But you need a person who has this massive aura and image on screen. When he walks into the frame, and when he kind of goes all out, bashing maybe 10 goons around him, you have to believe it, and you cannot believe it if you do not relate to the actor or the image of an actor in that sense. So if that actor has played this simpleton, the boy next door, a very average guy, he's been only doing those parts. In Marathi, you see most actors are offered parts or even are written parts that are offered to them are majorly relatable parts, where you'll have Marathi cinema that works best in the most relatable form that we know of, where your stories are about people around you. So all our actors are known to be rich. Then to kindly suddenly pick them up from there and put them on this pedestal and say, they are now not your relatable actors, stars anymore. They are not your boy next doors, but they are these really tough superheroes. Is not very easy for the audience to digest. So they don't see it in that perspective, and then you have to go really out of the way to make them believe that, and that never really lands well if you kind of do that. So I know that a lot of people have attempted this in their own ways, but none of it has worked uh, majorly because of this. Because the audience never tunes, and then they find all of that a farce. When you see these actors kind of in action sequences, or when you see them doing these punchline dialogues, it seems a little farcical. So that's why I felt maybe that's why in Marathi that's not the right genre to me, and
Yeah, because
it should not be attempted.
right, right. Yeah, I mean, you know this better than me. But, I always wish that, someone like Lalit Prabhakar or Kashmir would do these kind of like mass action films because I think they have that kind of,
Yeah,
aura to them
yeah,
that
yeah.
you could really use in this kind of films. But, I don't know. I mean, like you said,
But that's the problem. I have like with Lalit also I've spoken to him about this. So see, Lalit's journey to Marathi started from that Reshim Gati serial. So since then he played even the good parts he's played in films have been character actors. He's been Chiva Chisauka, he's been this chocolate boy. So people relate to him like this. Yes, suddenly you kind of have him bulk up and beat these 10 boys up. People don't understand that. They're like, okay, we don't get this. What's wrong with him? Why is he suddenly doing all of this? So there's one wishful thinking that we do as sometimes an audience for filmmakers, but there's a larger section of the audience who doesn't think like this. And for them, it is like, okay, we understand that there's a certain personality this guy has, but as an individual, we don't relate to him like this. So I do get, with Kashmir has attempted a lot more of those, but in Marathi, still just being physically strong or visually physically appealing doesn't is not the deal. See, if you see, Ritesh is not that.
right.
Ritesh is fit, but he's not a muscular guy. But still, people love him doing action.
Yes, yes.
That's because of the personality and the aura that he has.
Yeah, yeah. He has that star appeal. That's for sure. He has that
Yeah,
X factor. Yeah.
yeah, totally, totally.
Sholay Girl, Aditya, is a documentary on Reshma Pathan, who's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
legend of the film world.
yeah,
It's a cool story. It must be a great feeling, telling such fascinating stories about unsung legends from the
yeah.
film world.
Man,
No?
I'm telling you, the only reason I did this and attempted this was because I wanted to tell this story, and I just so wanted to tell this the first ever, and because I met her and I was so fascinated by her. I remember this was the 30th of December, and I had a meeting at with Z, and they had said, okay, we have a couple of stories that we want to offer you because we are making this series, a yearly series on these superwomen in India who have been iconic in their own fields. So I was offered these two stories. One was a one with the first firefighter, the first Indian firefighter, female firefighter, and then the other one was the first Indian female stunt woman. And I said, I come from the cinema, the world of cinema. I would really be intrigued to see and meet who this female is because she was very much active, Reshma Pathan. So I called her. I said, I want to meet you. She came and that one meeting kind of was so amazing. She had so many stories to tell. Her life story, her journey as a kid, as a young girl growing up, and how she kind of became a rebel and then she joined a film company, and then how she grew from there and became this iconic stunt woman who did Sholay. And Hema Malini used to not do films without her. All Hema Malini stunts she used to do. So she had so many interesting stories. I said, this gives me enough content, to play with. And I would love to kind of deep dive into this and make this for the screen. So I remember meeting the Z team and telling them that, what is the length that you want to make this? So they initially had a length of 60 minutes. I said, this is not content for 60 minutes. There's a lot more that can happen here. So we eventually made an 80-minute cut, but I still have not been able to kind of in that movie, in those 80 minutes, capture her life entirely, which is so fascinating. So, like, I
It's a
remember her
great
telling me
story.
that,
Yeah.
she has some crazy incidences, when she has these things she's done in life and the stuff she's done. She, as a kid, she had told me that we used to not get basic supplies. So as kids, we had these jackets that we used to wear, which had pockets on it, and these were jackets, half sleeveless jackets, which were tailored made for us. So we used to go to these dockyards and used to steal rice and used to fill those jackets and those pockets up with rice and run from there. We used to steal rice to just kind of, we did not have the food on a plate. So how people, her sister, her mother got arrested, and then how she went and got them out of the jail, and she was all what, 10, 9. So for her to do all these things at that age, I was quite surprised and shocked. So I said, man, what a life she's had. But then again, I feel that there's so many these unsung heroes that we don't even know about. So to be able to make a film like this for on her was an opportunity I couldn't have missed.
Absolutely. And props to you and Z5 for telling this story, Aditya. I highly recommend watching this film. I don't think too many people have watched this little film. It streams on
No, because
Z5.
yeah, it was never made as a commercial project. I think it was more of an attempt to kind of tell some very out of the box stories. And this was when the OTT market had not boomed in that. This is pre-pandemic. So we were making this just to see, okay, it's going to go straight to OTT. I had no idea to that great extent what OTTs are. I was like, एक प्लेटफॉर्म डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म आ रहा है, उधर फिल्म आई जाएगी, तो जो देखेंगे वो देखेंगे, जो नहीं देखेंगे इट्स ओके, इवेंचुअली इट रीच पीपल. So yeah, this was made in the 2019, I think. Yeah,
Yes, yes. So for those who haven't seen this film, I highly recommend watching it. Especially, if you love stories about the film world. So Reshma Pathan is an absolute legend, and go and watch this short film on Z5. It's called
yeah,
Sholay Girl.
lovely. Thank you.
Aditya, we got to talk about this little film you did called Zombivli, which
Oh yeah, yes,
so
man, we have
Zombivli
to.
is an absolute riot. Zombie comedy is a tricky business.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
very little margin of error because the zombies can easily look not so scary and the laughs can easily fall flat. You were
totally.
able to steer, clear of all these scenarios and make a really funny film where the zombies felt real and the jokes landed with a bang. How did you manage that?
I'll tell you what. As you've rightly said, even when you attempt a film like this, especially in Marathi, it is so easy to go wrong. It's so easy to go wrong with a film like this because see, we personally have no idea what zombies are in Maharashtra. It's a very Western concept. It's a very, I would say, a concept that is very elite because people here who have access to zombie movies have seen them. But if you go down to the masses, they have no idea what zombies are. So uh, we had to kind of get the creature character right, convince the audience what it is, and make them want to watch the film like this. It was, I'll tell you what, I had gone to Udley Films, who's the producer of the film, and we were discussing a different film altogether when I met them. And then the pandemic hit. So we were sitting at home and we were wondering what are we going to do now because we had no idea what's going to happen. What is going to happen to us? What is going to happen to the industry? Are theaters going to open? Are we even going to make movies or not? And this is, I'm talking about the second week of pandemic and not even maybe a month into the pandemic. I think I was overreacting then. I was like wondering, okay, अभी तो कितने देर घर पे बैठने के? I was going crazy. And I remember having this Zoom call with the team at Udley, and they said, कितना देर चलेगा? एक महीना, डेढ़ महीना. We have to get back to work. So we don't have. So tomorrow, if the government says, okay, now go and shoot, what are we shooting? We don't have a film. We don't have a script. So I said, yeah, you guys are right. Why are we blaming them? We don't have anything to worth making. So why are we even saying that यार ये घर पे बैठे हैं, कुछ है ही नहीं करने के लिए? So let's develop something. And they said we have this writer called Mahesh Iyer, very smart young writer. He has this zombie idea. He will pitch this idea to you, tell us if you like it or not. So he narrated this idea about him, and he stays in Dombivli. So he said, when I travel from Dombivli every day to Andheri West to kind of struggle in the industry, I think there are enough zombies in our train who kind of behave like zombies. We have all this fixed regime, that you get up at a certain time, you catch a certain train, you come in a certain way. And people have been doing that for ages. So he said, I always felt traveling that this could be a good zombie film. And we just managed to come up with this Zombivli as a title because zombies in Dombivli sounded very catchy. And when he said Zombivli, I said, man, this is a film just for the title I'll make. Because the title is so much fun
It's
that
catchy, yeah.
it it has to be, this film has to be made. So I know of Dombivli, I know there's a life there that is not a very easy life, because you don't have great roads, you have a lot of traffic, you have basic amenities that don't, there's hardly any water supply, there's a loss of electricity. So they are grappling with their everyday issues in themselves. Here we were sitting in our houses because of the pandemic, uh, in house arrest in a way, where if you step outside without a mask, you had the risk of getting the virus and losing your life. So there were these police barricades all over, and you know how the pandemic went. So I said, man, we're living in a world where zombies could be out there, man. This is a perfect film to tell right now. I said, I want to make this right now. So we wrote the film on Zoom calls. It's so funny, Manchu. I had not met
Wow,
my writers. I had not met my writers till the film release. On the
that's
day of release,
crazy.
on the premiere day, I met my writers physically for the first time. Till then, we had only been on Zoom calls. So we kind of wrote the film on Zoom calls. Then we eventually decided to. I when we locked the script of the film, I cast my film on Zoom calls. I cast it on phone calls because we were all in the pandemic, all stuck. Thankfully, all the actors liked it and they said yes. And we were waiting for the pandemic to open. The day, I think on 7th June, the pandemic was kind of called off, is when we started shooting the film. And it was so much fun and so challenging to make it, because that was a time when people were very unsure of even stepping out of their houses. And here I was asking groups and hordes of people as zombies attacking these humans. So the first challenge was to find an actor or a junior or an extra or a technician who was even ready to step out of his house and come on a film set. And that was pretty challenging. And trust me, it is now, it looks a little silly, but in those times, it was a big task for us to
Yeah, people
find the
were
people
scared.
who
Yeah.
were extremely scared. So people used to be like, okay, we love the script, but we are not shooting. We are not doing this. Why? Are you crazy? We don't want to lose our lives. We want to be at home. We want to be safe. And are you guys crazy? Why are you making this film? So everyone used to every alternate guy I used to approach used to give me the same reason. And eventually, the crazies who did not care about their lives but wanted to make movies kind of got together, and that was the team. So I uh, I remember my first ever zombie casting session was hilarious. So I had told my casting director that, okay, we are going to need a group of around 130, zombies. So we have to kind of cast whoever we can find, train them, and get them onto the film. So I said, go audition and get auditions and ask people to self audition, because at that point of time, it was very difficult for people to come in studios for auditions. They were all again in the pandemic stuck at home. So we were asking for self tests. If I compile those, we got around what, 200 videos, 300 videos. If I compile those 300 videos and edit them and make a 3 hour film also of this, I will have a blockbuster on mine. It was so fun. It was hilarious the way people from Mumbai, Pune, from small parts of Maharashtra interpreted zombies.
Right.
The interpretation of zombies was so hilarious that some guys actually even did zombies which look like dinosaurs. No, they would jump and prance with hands like this. I said, this is not what a zombie is. What are they thinking? So then we realized that people here don't have a context what zombies are. They have no reference to zombies. So we used to get these questions कि वो शैतान है या वो भूत है या वो zombie है, पर zombie क्या है? They had no idea. So actually, in the film, if you see, there's a scene that is where Amir, uh, Sunil, he goes to the police station and he's telling the cop that he
Yes, that's a great
saw a
scene.
zombie.
Yeah.
And the cop says, are you crazy? What are these zombies? What are you even talking about? So he does this whole enactment of trying to convince this cop what zombies are. That scene was not in the film. While we were just about to go on to shoot, I told my writers he got to do a scene like this, where when he's attacked by zombies, he has to go to the police station, and we have to shoot a scene like this, which I am going to cut a trailer of and release this, because I need to first convince my audience or educate them what zombies are, because they have no idea what zombies are. because I saw these tapes coming in, which was so absurd. So then what I did was I and my casting director actually got a couple of actors to perform how zombies are. We shot that performance. We sent those videos out to people, telling them that, okay, this is what we want. Please audition yourself in this way, this form, and send the auditions to us. So there are some auditions where people are enacting on their wives, on their kids, on their families, because people are at home stuck with their families inside the house. So somebody shooting a video, they are attacking their mother. So some old lady sitting here and this young guy is going to bite her and she's running away from there. Such hilarious videos, I'm telling you, they were extremely funny. So so all these videos finally we selected as zombies and we got them to Mumbai in batches, because again there was a limit of, I think in that time you could not have more than 50 people gather in one area, or 25 I think that was then. Then it became 50. So we had batches of 25, 25, 25 eventually coming to studios where we could do makeup on them. And that makeup also took a lot of time. On per zombie, when we started the first round of makeup, uh, we, my makeup team took around 25 minutes per zombie just to make those veins. They're all handmade. The veins popping out of the face and the eyes and the color changing. Everything was practically done. I did not do CGI in that. So in all of that, I realized that I need sometimes in on some days 150 zombies. So I can't wait for 5 to 6 hours just for the makeup to be done. So we had to speed it up. So we did multiple rehearsals of makeup teams also, trying to go faster. And then we started timing and clocking it to maybe 8 to 9 minutes per zombie. And then how we kind of actually on set used to have this, what do you call it? A production line. If you go to companies, you'll see these cars being manufactured. So you have a production line. So we used to have these lines, 4, 5 lines with 5 makeup artists, and this whole row in every line. So then the guy used to come and sit. Then his makeup used to be done. He used to be sent to the next for costume. Then the next guy has to come and sit. So we had these production lines on during the shoot, and then you used to slowly one after the other get these zombies. So sometimes when we shot in Latur, we had to cast locals as zombies because a lot of Mumbai zombies didn't turn up just because we were shooting in a different town. And they're like, okay, if we fall ill and we get the pandemic, we don't want to be stuck in a different city. We don't mind being stuck at home. So suddenly a few people just dropped out. So we said, okay, now we need those people. We need to cast from Latur. So when we had people in Latur come audition, there were some people who aced it. The day they put their makeup on, they said, we are not doing this. They kind of cleaned it up and they went back. And I stopped them. I said, why are you not performing? They said, are you crazy with this look? If anybody in our town sees us like this, nobody will talk to us for the rest of our lives. So we can't do this. So it was very, very difficult to kind of convince people to do this thing. Forget, the output of it. But then, once those who were convinced, we had a lot of fun shooting this. It was hilarious. The amount of madness we've done and how much we've laughed with just making the film.
Did you have any zombie films as references for this particular film to show to the
Yeah, yeah,
makeup artists?
totally. I had compiled, I think, a couple of scenes from Train to Busan. I had compiled a couple of scenes from Shaun of the Dead. So these two definitely were my references. So my zombies were not brain dead. They were smart. They used to react to sound. They were vicious. So Train to Busan helped people understand who my zombies are. Shaun of the Dead purely for the humor, the way the makeup was, the way the costumes were. That really helped. But yeah, these two films I think are iconic zombie comedies.
And you definitely had some fun with the character names. I can tell that. Lalit is Vishwas, Amay is Sudhir
Yeah,
Joshi. And that's
yeah,
an obvious nod to Ashi Banwa
ah,
Banvi, where Sudhir Joshi's character
yes,
is called Vishwas Sarpotdar. And
yep,
also, if I
yep,
remember correctly, Sachin's character was called Sudhir. So
yep,
it's also like a reverse kind of.
yeah. Ah, oh man, you remember this? See, nobody got this joke, but I just kind of wanted to do it. I don't know why. I just said I want to do make
Yeah,
a
yeah,
film
that's
where there
hilarious.
is
I
a
mean, that in
Sudhir, a
itself is
Vishwas.
hilarious.
Yeah, yeah, yep,
The cast
totally,
was
totally,
great,
totally.
Aditya. Everyone is on point. Right from that society uncle, who walks out with a gun, assuring everyone that he's seen it all before. And when the zombies show up, he completely panics and starts banging on his flat's door. Hey, are Daruguda, Akhilesh. I love
So you
that
know
scene.
what? I feel we have seen so many such guys, around us who kind of are extremely smart when it comes to kind of running their mouth in an argument. But when push
Typical
comes to
society
shove, they
uncle.
have to. Yeah, yeah. When it comes to actually, if there's any fight happening and if there are people at hand to hand there, they will be the first ones to turn around and dash off. So, so he was one of those guys. I remember seeing a few of those in Pune myself. So I was like, okay, I want a exactly that kind of an Azuma who was this older man, but Pradeep Joshi also is a very good actor. I think I don't know if you've seen him perform. He was in Chiva Chisauka.
Yes,
I think
yes.
it was Lalit's father
Yeah.
or Munmai's father. He was playing somebody's parent in that film. And he was hilarious in that film. So when I met him, I told him, just be yourself. Don't do anything else. Just, I am casting you to be yourself in the film. So he said, okay,
Did he
great. I
improvise
will do
those
it.
lines like मी 93चे दंगे बघितलेत and all that? Or was that
No, I'm
different?
telling you, no, that was the character. That was the
Okay.
character. We told him, ki, you are a character. But see, the thing about him is, he puts so much of himself in it.
Hmm.
These lines coming from him seem really hilarious. Because, it seems so unlikely for a man like him to say, मैं 93 से दंगे बघितले. Because he would be the first guy who would never step out of his house when
He would
when
have
he knows
again
there's some
asked
riot going.
Akhilesh to open the door. Yeah.
Yeah, open the door. He would never step out only. So I felt for him to kind of have these big long quotes. Yeah, I know this and I know that. Who are these guys? But I just felt we did he was there throughout the film. So where he's shot and then he's kept on this wheelchair and then he's brought to the hospital. All of those sequences, when we shot with him, we laughed so much because he would do it not as comedy. He would approach it as serious drama, and because his approach is so funny at drama, we find it really comical. So when he just panics also and says, "Arey, he just does that when zombies come at him. It's very odd to see like a Puneri uncle Kaka kind of be in this Dombivli setup who is attacked by zombies of all the people. So, so his issues in life would be pani yet nahi hai. His issues in life would be people are not following traffic rules. His issues would not be zombies attacking him and him trying to save his life from these odd mutants. So I think it was really funny to see that setup.
Yeah, and the entire cast is great. I mean, but I thought like Amay Wagh particularly was hilarious. I mean, the highest compliment that one could pay him for this performance, I thought that is there are bits in the film, where he reminds you of
Yeah,
Lakshmikant Berde. I remember there
yeah,
is this scene where Vishwas confronts Sudhir after he has had his
yeah. Outside the
run-in
beer
with a
bar,
zombie.
outside the bar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Vishwas starts acting up, and Sudhir just freaks out, gets in the car, starts driving away, shouting, "Hey, pada pada, psycho hai, pada pada, psycho aaya." That has such Laksha vibe.
You know,
I mean, the first thing that
that is an improvisation. Huh? That is Amay's improvisation.
that's absolutely hilarious. And the first thing that you
Yeah,
think
man.
about that, somehow it always brought back memories of Lakshmikant Berde when I'm watching that film, because it
Man,
always feels like that.
I so agree with you. I remember when Amaya, so when we were writing this, because see now, because I know Amaya so well, I know that Amaya has these freaks, about him that he loves to attempt something as crazy as this also. Because he is that mad guy in a certain sense also. He loves doing all this madness. So when I was casting, I said I don't see anybody but Amaya doing it because I know this is his favorite playing ground, right? It's his pitch. He can go and just hit out of the park. And I have to let him loose. I have to tell him, Amaya, just be yourself and make this scene mad, make it fun. So a lot of spontaneity that he brings to the performance as an actor, a lot of it is in the film. That is just him, more than what's written. So even when suddenly you have this shot where in that same scene, where his hand, Sudhir's hand first dashes at Amaya, and Sudhir holds it. There's these reactions of Amaya that kind of go from what the fuck is happening to is this really even happening
Yeah.
to am I hallucinating this or is it really happening? He's kind of done it, in these moments because
Yeah.
he's panicking while he's doing all of that. And he just does it so well. So I do feel that in the film, everywhere, wherever he's had to kind of do all this madness, he's enjoyed it to the max. He's had, in that in the cop scene where I don't know if you remember that scene. So it's the scene that we spoke about where he goes to the police station and he's telling the cop कि मी माझ्यावर हल्ला केला कुणी केला तर zombie होता. And the cop is like, zombie ये क्या होता है? What is this zombie का असतं? So he has to explain to the cop what a zombie is. So I had told him just before the shot that in the scene what is written was that he says की असतात ना ती लोक, he just explains to him in words कि they are brain dead and they can't see but they come to bite you and all that they say. So I told him before the shot, I said, Ame, I know you very well. I just don't want you to say these lines out. I want you to enact it out for him. Do physical enactment of this. So you want to convince this cop what these zombies are. You have to show him what these zombies are. So he asked me, what do I really do? I said, just stand up from your chair and do a small performance for him of what a zombie would be like. I will keep rolling. And he does all of that. He stands up, he does his hands, he makes a face like a zombie, and he growls also like a zombie. So that was in the trailer. I kept that shot in the trailer. Then my scene opens like this. But but man, when he was doing it, my DOP actually in this shot, there's a bit of a shake of the camera. And that's because my DOP was laughing his ass off behind the camera uncontrollably. And we actually did not want to dub the scene, so we were kind of holding our laughter in because we wanted his actual audio, the sing sound to be there. But after I said cut, the whole unit kind of burst out laughing. And Amay looked at us saying, ki, why are you laughing so much? I said, you don't know how funny this looks. You have done it, but when you see it actually on screen, it's outrageously funny. So I remember when the film had released, Anupama Chopra had seen the film. She went to the theater and she just saw the film and she tweeted about it. And I was shocked. I was like, Anupama Chopra Marathi film देखने क्यों गए? But she went, she said it, and she even when she had come for Munja's preview, she told me this that why are you not making a sequel to Zombie? It is one of my favorite films. I said, are you serious? He's like, yeah, it's one of my favorite films. I loved it. Why just make a sequel to that film? Oh, I said, I did not know this. So, but how crazy, man, that is.
Yeah, that's the most important question, Aditya, about this film. Zombie 2, when?
Yeah, you know what? I,
I know
I,
you're not a
I,
big
I,
fan of franchises, but
I am not a big fan of franchise just because I feel that you have all the fun you want making the first part, and then that fun is done. It's like kind of sitting on the same roller coaster ride twice. When you sit for the first time, you don't know what's going to come your way. You enjoy it to the max. Then you very well know what's happening, and then you kind of are just going with the flow. I sometimes feel as a filmmaker, when you make a sequel, you kind of do it knowing everything that's going to follow. Your surprises, your excitement is somewhere get kind of is diminishes, at certain, and that's why I have high respect to filmmakers who have made great sequels. Like when a film like Lagero Munnabai is a better sequel than the first, but I have high respect to the filmmakers who kind of attempted maybe a Judgment Day, Terminator 2. I have very few films.
oh,
I feel
yes.
the sequels have been better than the first parts. I loved Home Alone 2. I loved Godfather sequel. So I feel very few films really have great sequels. And
Mm.
uh, yeah, man, I just feel it. I would feel fatigued, to kind of attempt the same film again.
You don't have the same energy again to go about it now
Yeah, you like you
for that
you
kind of
know, man.
subject. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you anticipate it. My see, I'll tell you what. My kick of making a film now, my excitement of making a film, or my passion to make a film, is purely because I love to venture into spaces I have not been before. I love to tell kind of stories that I have not told before, which I don't know whether I can tell in my best way. So I like to like attempt narrative stories, genres, in a space which I feel I explore my worlds and my storytelling, and I kind of invent, reinvent, and in a certain way, I would say I I myself kind of open up to that space when I'm designing and setting it up. So it's very exciting, kind of to put yourself in the space of the creator and just cooking up these great stories, worlds, and characters. Once you've done it, then you have to kind of redo it with the same setup. Then that excitement of exploring it is lost. Then you're trying to kind of live up to it by making a sequel. So yeah, I think with that the traps of it are a lot. Yeah.
That brings us to your next film, Unad, which I only happened to watch recently.
Okay.
It was made in 2018, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
It
just
was
for
actually,
people,
see, it was not actually, it was shot in 2018 end, December. And then because of the pandemic, we had to keep the whole post on it on hold. And then we kind of went into, uh, again, finishing the film and releasing in 22.
yeah, again, this is a great film, and I think not a lot of people have seen this film. So I'll just
Hmm.
quickly give a brief intro about the film without, giving out any spoilers about the film. But it's essentially a coming of age film, a film with a beating heart. It's about self discovery. It's about consent. It feels very much like modern Malayalam cinema. It has great music, great cinematography. It's set in Konkan, like many of your films. And I believe this is shot in Guwahar, if I'm not mistaken,
It is shot in Guwahar and Dapoli,
and Dapoli.
Bharne. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to say this, Aditya. I don't want to give out spoilers about this film because I know a lot of people have not watched this film. But so
Yeah.
if without giving out spoilers, I want to talk about this film because I really love this film, and like I said earlier, in my opinion, I think this is your best film. But especially that one boat episode with Shubham's character, where he spends
Yeah.
a few days with the fisherman, is
Yeah.
one of the best sequences in Marathi cinema in recent years, in my opinion.
Oh, lovely.
I
Lovely.
absolutely loved that whole bit with the captain of the boat. He mentions something to the tune of the ocean is just like a family member. It might get angry
Yeah.
at you, but it
Yeah.
also looks after you.
Yeah.
By the way, the guy who played the captain of the boat was terrific.
Yeah.
And
Man.
what's his name,
What
by
was
the way?
it? So Sandesh Jadhav.
Sandhya. Okay, okay. So great
Yeah.
actor. And I love that episode. Shubham's character arc is, something that really resonated with me. Character that it really hits home, and like I said, this film just has a beating heart, and I really enjoyed this film. The music is great too. What can you share more about this film?
This whole, and thank you firstly for having such good things to say about the film. And, this is one of those films in my career and my life of making films where, I never saw this as anything but just purely passionate storytelling. It was something that I felt so close to in terms of a story I had to tell. Because, see, when I made Narbachi Wadi, or whenever I went to Konkan, I traveled a lot there. Somehow that whole region has captured my heart. I'm just so fascinated by how lovely it is. And I've seen Konkan in the monsoons, in the summers, in the winters, and I see all three different versions of it. And it lends itself to such a lovely backdrop, a cinematic backdrop for telling stories. So in my all my trips there, I have met these young boys who have had such interesting stories to tell. And these communities, who live such interesting lives. And I felt so bad about the fact that they were so misrepresented or hardly represented itself in the world of cinema. Not many films were made about them. Not many stories were told about them. They were either just looked at as these caricaturish comedy characters. When you say a Kori or a fisherman, he's supposed to kind of come and talk in a certain way, which is funny, or have these couple of songs that people know of that they sing and perform on Kori, and that's it. They were not nothing beyond that was ever spoken about them. And these boys I'm used to meet had such interesting stories because they are at a point of time right now in their lives where all their prior generations have done is just the father kind of takes the son on the boat when the son is coming of age. Then the father retires, the son continues. Then the son gets married. He has a son. Then he's the father now, who takes his son again on the boat. So that's a cycle that these communities have lived in. Now these young boys understand what the world outside has in store for them because of social media, because of technology that's reached their towns and villages. They have phones in their hands. They very well understand. So they don't want to go on the boats. They don't want to fish anymore. They want to come to Mumbai. They want to study. They are the boys who tell me that, sir, we will go and work as security in a mall, but would not want to go on a. And if you ask them why, maybe it's that the world is opened up for them. They've seen better opportunities and they've seen a better life outside because it's a very difficult life to live. Very, very difficult being on a boat. We've shot there for 12 days and there are people who have done this all their lives. I can't even imagine, how going on a boat, deep sea, catching fish, how difficult it is. So I felt, this is such an interesting world to kind of present in a film. And these boys have such valid, interesting stories to tell, of a generation where there's a certain uh, lifestyle that a town follows, and they want to break free, but they don't know how. And when you say coming of age films, I'd never made one, firstly. And I always loved this genre. And I wanted to make a film about a young boy, kind of finding his voice, his purpose in life. So I felt, who better than these boys, who these kids who are so different from the kids that we see in, or how we were growing up in cities. Their life is different, their challenges are different, their understanding of each other and relationships is so different. So I just stayed there, went there, spent time with them. Me and my writer Saurabh Bhave, we stayed in Konkan for a good month and a half. Met so many of these boys. What's very funny about this whole journey of making the film is not many people know that I had no plans to making Unad when I went to Konkan, and I came back with a finished shoot and a film. So I never came back in the middle process. I just went there, found the story. There was no screenplay dialogues. I found a story which I realized that I found these three boys whose life I've set up in the film. They're actually these three boys who had these exact same things happen to them. So I just kind of wrote their stories. I think I interconnected them and made them a group. And I told my friends who were producers of the film that it's a small budget film I'm making. I don't know what's going to come of it. I'll not spend much. I'll see to it that maybe how much ever you were putting into this film, you will get it back. But we don't know where we're headed. What's going to happen? We have no idea. But I want to make this film. Are you on board or not? And they said we're coming. We're there. We are with you. They just landed up in Konkan. I said I don't want to go back to Mumbai and set this up as a film because the day I start doing this, I know a lot of people will not see what I see here. A lot of people will not know what I know here. They will not be able to understand what I'm trying to make. It is just a film that is inside me. You have to trust me, back me, and that's it. So there was no script, there was no storyboards, there was nothing. It was just an idea that I had in my mind, and everybody landed up there. Even when I cast the film, I called up actors. I told my casting director, find me boys who have not been seen before. Find me boys who have not done a lot, who are raw, who are who are just fresh into this industry, who would at a drop of their hat, they would just jump into a film like this without asking too many questions, and who trust me. And luckily, we found these boys who said, "Okay, what do we have to do? Stand here, say this line, be this boy." Okay, done. No idea of what the story was. Even till today, Una does not have a script. There's no script of Una. The first time I had a draft of the film was when we wrote a film after the film was edited and ready. You have to kind of submit a copy of a script to the censor board. So I realized I don't have a script to the film. So I got my assistant to sit and write the film what they were watching on screen. I should just write it on paper and just say, let's assume this is the script. But there was these moments, these situations, these incidences, these locations, this vibe that I had in my mind, and we just kind of went out and shot the film. So a lot of credit to the people who had such blind trust in just following what I wanted to do. And and even with me, it was like I was exploring this boy. So we shot the film linearly. So exploring his journey while I was shooting him, and coming kind of adapting to it while I was shooting. So when we even went on the boat, in the sequence you're talking about the boat, they had no idea what they were in for when they went on the boat. And I told them the same thing. So when you go on a journey, you don't know what's going to happen to you. When the journey ends is when you know what all you lived through. And at the end of the journey, you always kind of are wiser because you know the experiences you have had on that journey. The next one you kind of make, you would carry those with you. So I said, as actors, as a team, do not ask me what's going to happen. Just get onto a boat, come with me. I will tell you what's going to happen, and things will happen. Just go with the flow. So they just did what I asked them to do, and they're such great team players. So we used to go every morning on this boat, and getting onto the boat, getting off the boat, going on to the set, coming back from the set was an adventure in itself.
Yeah,
Because
must be
I did
very
not
challenging, right? To shoot on the boat.
very the boat moves on the rocks. What you see in the film is stabilized version of my shots. Otherwise, the shots rock to no end. For my DOP to stand and shoot on that boat was itself a challenge. So my DOP shot without lights. I did not have the budget for lights. I didn't give him any lights. I said, you shoot on natural light. All the village nights also, the night sequences he shot, it's all on practical lights. So when we were shooting in the boat, we wanted to, so in the film, they go into no man's land and there's no land around. They are deep sea fishermen. So I could not go that deep when I was shooting because we had to go from shore and do on-off trips. But we used to travel at least an hour and a half into the ocean when we shot the film. So getting there early morning so we could get good light to get our first shot was in itself like a this long journey we could make and come back in the evening when the water, the sea is extremely violent and crazy. So our boat used to kind of jump onto the waves. We were all holding on to those rods or whatever we could find for our lives so that we don't fly off the boat. So coming back after pack up every evening for 12 consecutive nights was extremely adventurous. And I think that film, how much you see on screen, there's you multiply it 10 times. It was that adventure that we had while shooting itself. So amazing, man, amazing memories.
Great film, great film. And guys, again, if you haven't seen this, this streams on Geo Cinema. I
Yeah,
absolutely recommend watching this film. It's a great film. It's a short film, so it's not that
yeah,
long, but it's
totally.
absolutely a great film. I really love this film, so do watch it.
Thank you so much.
Now, let's talk about your biggest success. First of all, congratulations on the massive success of Munjya.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have a lot of questions about this film, but Munjya
Okay.
is a huge success. It has crossed well over 100 crores. Virtually no
Yeah.
stars, but great actors. Let me start by asking you this. Now, looking back at Munjya, what are the biggest lessons, creative and otherwise, from Munjya's success?
A lot. Uh, Firstly, Mancha, I would say I was lucky to be with a production company that let me make Munja the way I make Marathi films. When you're making your first film in Hindi, a lot many times you have to adapt as filmmakers. I've seen my fellow directors also do this.
Can
That
can you elaborate on those
I'll
differences?
tell you
Like,
what it is. When you make a film in Marathi, the hero of your film is the script, is the story. We all buy into making the film. We all step into it. We all associate with the film purely because we all get excited about the story. And we feel this is a great film, great story, lovely story to tell. We have to tell this story. So, right from an actor to a director to a producer to each one who associates himself with the film is because the story works for them. In Hindi, it's not always the same. In Hindi, a lot of times the film gets made because an ex-actor associates with himself with it, or a certain kind of a production company wants to make it, which has uh, which stands in a certain power capacity, where they can say they can make the films, or then a certain budget of a film kind of gets sanctioned, and that you can mount it so well. So there are so many dynamics that come into play when you're making Hindi film. With Marathi, it's not the same. So I having made so many Marathi films over the years, I always kind of was accustomed and used to making films where I could first write a script, then look for actors to be a part of the script, then to get them on board, and then to tell them what my vision was, and then to kind of go and make it. With Hindi, I've seen it would have been where I know I have an actor available, so I write a film for him. Or I have a film and the actor says, okay, I don't see myself in this film in that sense. Let's adapt and write it to my image or to my understanding. So film goes through a few writes, a rewrite, and a write again, and then you kind of making that film where your star of the film is the hero of the film and not the story of the film. So that kind of puts the director into a little bit of a dilemma where you kind of are wondering, okay, you want to eventually make the film you set out to make, but you're also kind of adapting to another vision on it, which is the lead star's vision. And because these lead stars have such great, I think they hold such a valuable position in that whole chain that a lot of people have no option but to listen to them. You have to go with the flow, what that a actor feels. So I did not want to be that director. When I was making my first Hindi film in that sense, which was going to be a theatrical release and which had mad of producing it. So I met the producer and I said, I feel it's a great story and Munja is this creature character that we are going to create. So can I not kind of go with reputed actors? And because I wanted a young boy, can I cast a new boy? And he was gracious enough and he had that foresight where he said, I believe in the larger vision of the film. You go and make it the way you want. So I could attempt this again on the merit of the story and not on the merit of the casting of the film. And that's why when we released the film and we saw it do well, I realized that it is eventually now the audience also is tuning into this same sensibility as a filmmaker that I always wanted to follow. That, we always place the story beyond the actor. Where we have seen in Hindi a lot of these years was the other way around. People would come to theaters for an A actor and then the film would matter. But now the last 2 years, if you see the way films have performed at the box office, you will realize that the audience has started to put their stories as their primary objectives or the primary selling points to a film. Right? So it's great for me to kind of know this and having got that confidence that okay, I can attempt a story because I like it, not because there's an ex actor attached to it. As a filmmaker, it gives you a lot of confidence, and I do feel a big major wake up call for the industry with Munjya doing so well. Also, is that it's high time we back some really great stories, and then find actors to do it. And if you don't have an actor, maybe an A-lister who's convinced about that, you go and make it with a young newcomer, but you still go and make it. You don't wait for that actor to come on board. So I think it's criminal of a lot of us who kind of let great stories just pass because actors don't want to do those. I think it's time that we prioritize why films are being made. It's purely because we want to tell a certain story. So that confidence Munja definitely gives me. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's still true what those old adages are, like first, like nobody knows, anything about this business,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
what will work. But it's also true that if you have a good story and if you tell it well, it will work.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it all boils down to that. Um,
Completely.
Aditya, can you talk about the look and the animation design of Munja and how you went about that?
So, when we set out to make Munja, we did not have a great budget. Like we had a good budget, but it was not a budget that was a big number, where you kind of associate with when you're making these CG heavy films in India. Because also I felt that I think the producer and we at that point of time definitely had no idea the film would do the business it did today. But we felt okay, we need to be smart about it, make a good film, but make it with a certain budget so that we don't regret having made this film. So we kind of had a certain budget in mind. We felt that because I wanted to get this whole 3D element into the film, where I wanted Munja to be 3D, I wanted him to be a character that kids really associated with. And with prosthetics, it gets a little gory because I know when you have an actor where this whole prosthetics, where there's makeup, which is the skin tone of a tree and the sharp teeth and all, the minute that looks a little more gruesome. So I did not want that tone on the film. And I said with a CG character, kids will find it a lot more fun to see a CG character perform. So I had this vision of Munja growing up, which was what we designed. And I remember when I started to make the film, if you ever went onto Google and searched what Munja was, there were at least some 6 different varieties of what the sketches available then were, which were all different from each other. So there was no one unified image of what a Munja is supposed to be like. So I said, okay, if I have to create this in my own way, I want to create it the way I saw him when I was a kid. So I want him to have tree texture on him. I want him to be this creature who is kind of blends in with this whole environment on the people tree that he lives in. He has to definitely look like a Brahmin boy whose thread ceremony just happened, but who's dead and who's kind of rotten to be the creature, but he still kind of has the bali, the earbud, maybe his braid, his thread around him. So those elements should not change. And I also wanted him to kind of have that certain childlike innocence. And then, how do you say it? It's devilish, but it's still mischievous, So that is what I wanted him to kind of in his eyes have that. So I briefed my VFX supervisor. So when I actually wanted to make the film, and when I said I want a 3D creature, then we said, okay, we need to get one of the best people who have done this because we don't have these references in India at all. I do not, at that point of time, I did not have a single reference of a humanoid who was a lead of a film who was CG. So we contacted this CG supervisor slash VFX artist called Brad Minnick. Brad is from LA. He's great. I think he's one of the best. So he's worked on most of the Russo brothers and Snyder films. He's done all of them. He was this extremely key instrumental figure in the Zack Snyder's version of Justice League. He's the guy who's put that film together. So he had done Aquaman. He did a lot of films as this lead head guy. So we reached out to him and I said, man, I'm from India. I don't know if you would do this, but there's a Hindi film. So he got so excited because I had narrated to him what Munjya in my mind was. And he said, oh, I've never heard of this ever in my life before. So I would love to come and do this. And he came. And then we got DNEG, the company Double Negative, uh, the one who have done Dune and all these big films, to come and be a part of the film to create this CG character. And it's not only a CG character, it's also the world of the character. So it's the Chetuk Wadi, the fort, the ocean around the fort, the night sea, all of that is CGI. The forest is CG. So all of that had to kind of blend in so well to make
The
this
world
world
building,
believable.
yeah.
And these guys kind of are very good at it. So that's the journey it started. It took me a good 2.5 years to make the film because it needed some prep, it needed some post work. The post work was, I think, a lot more tedious, but it was an experience that I would say just has taught me so much in terms of the technicalities of making films, the way they need to be made now and today. So yeah, I think Munja has been, I think, a game changer for me. A film that has changed my life to a
Yeah,
point
yeah.
where it's put me out on the map. And I would very humbly say this that uh, because the film had no star, I got a lot of credit to the film. Where maybe if the film had an A-lister, I wouldn't have. You know, being very practical about it. That we do not know a lot of film directors who made films with A-listers which have done them. We know that A-listers film, but we don't know the directors who made it. Not every time do we. So I felt here because it was all a new cast. I did get a lot of credit for having made Munjan, and that's I think it's great. It's just great. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Once again, congratulations on the massive success
Thank you,
of that
Mansur.
film. It's always great, when good films do good business. Kakuda is a horror comedy too, but
Oh yeah,
it's a very different film because it also takes pot shots at the genre. It's essentially a
yeah, yeah, yeah,
spoof, a bit like
yeah,
Scary
yeah,
Movie or Tucker and Dale versus
yeah,
Evil or something like that.
yeah,
And it has those customary tropes like scarecrow in cornfield, a
yeah,
paranormal investigator,
yeah,
but
yeah.
again a rooted film, a rooted story.
See, it was a film that we always wanted to make purely because we wanted to make a spoof comedy at horror comedy. But we always also felt that spoof, as a genre is not extremely popular here because people have not attempted spoofs a lot. So we said we just can't go out and make just a pure spoof. Let's tell a story with, and let's attempt spoof as a treatment to the film. So that's why in the story itself we have all these cliches that you can think of, right from a ghost hunter, these very silly devices that he carries, a scarecrow, a town which has this very odd folklore about them, which is just too hard to believe. This guy who has a hunch on his back suddenly, it all these tropes kind of are tropes that we have heard, seen, or been kind of we've seen happen in every other horror film that we have known of. So, so I wanted to do all of that, and I wanted to kind of take, and that's why I had a dwarf of a ghost, and I wanted to kind of even take shots at the films that were iconic in this genre. And see, there's one rule of every horror comedy, that your element of horror, which is your creature or your ghost or whoever you have it, has to be extremely terrifying. You should be scared of it. So in a horror spoofy comedy, it has to be the exact opposite. That you believe that there's going to be a scary creature or a ghost that will come, but then when it comes, you kind of look at it and say, "Are you serious? Is this?" So my actors actually react also. With the first time see the Kakuda, they're like, "Are you serious? Is he the one that we were scared of?"
Right.
So so there are a lot of times I did that in the film, and again, I kind of knew all along this is a film that's going to go straight to OTT because we kind of conceptualized this in the pandemic again, and at that point of time, films were being made for OTT. So We said people are going to sit at home and just have fun with the film and just let's make a film that they're going to laugh at. Because see, actually, I'll be very honest with you. Pulling off horror for an OTT film is not very easy. See, when you're doing horror for a theatrical, you have a lot of tropes that you can kind of go to because you know your audience is 100% committed to you on the screen. They are sitting in a dark space. There's a sound and light that's enveloping them, so you can like really play with their design and you can scare them. But on an OTT, you have the audience kind of you don't even know where they're sitting and watching it. They could be even watching it in harsh sunlight where the screen is not even clearly visible, or they could be traveling and looking up and down and not even paying attention. So you can't really scare people, in that kind of a spook. You can't spook people off at the OTT films. So I knew that. So I said, okay, I don't want to even attempt. I want to go crazy, a little more mad, and that's what we attempted. And a lot of people have liked the film.
It's
We
fun.
got a lot
It's
of
it's a
views on
fun
the film.
film. Yeah.
Yeah, purely fun film, nothing else.
Films like Munjya, Tumbad, or even Kakuda, show that more you go local, more you tell rooted stories,
Yeah,
stronger the universal connect, stronger the appeal
yeah,
across audiences, across languages, across even borders. Why do you think that is
yeah.
so?
We have grown up in India listening to all these fables being told to us, which always belong to once upon a time in a village, and it always because the once upon a time in this in India, and India then always seemed like the grassroots in India, um, and you always do even today. If you ever have these pujas being performed at home, I'm sure you know of the Satyanarayan puja, right? I'm sure it's done in every house
Oh,
that we.
yes, yes.
So if you remember the story told, the Satyanarayanachi Katha that that is narrated during the puja, it's again all these stories that have a certain moral to them, but they all come and they're very, very vivid in terms of imagination. They are fantasy, but they sound and look so fascinating and believable because they come from these small towns and villages, which seem like folklores. They seem like these urban legends, and that has been catching our attention since a very young age. So I feel when you set these films up in these worlds, they just look real. They seem real. They feel real. In big cities and big towns, when you kind of try to find films to be set up here, which are horror movies, it's very difficult to even imagine the fact that there could be a ghost where there are maybe 50 odd people living in an apartment and there could be a ghost among them. You can't believe that. But to believe a ghost existing in a small town somewhere where there's a village, where there's a forest, where there's this eco coexistence, where uh, you can get spooked out so easily, it's easier to believe, And I felt that in India, there's so much of folklore that we've heard through Panchatantra and through stories and through these tales. Um, we've hardly made films on. So when you're putting up a horror comedy, the first thing you want to make people believe is that this film has an element of a ghost in it and it's a believable story. So this is really happening. And so to sell it the best, you sell it in a world where people will believe this. So I think these towns and very interesting areas in India where there's a language that's intriguing and different, where the landscape is different, where it's a simpler life, where people are living more, I would say, very rooted lifestyles. It's easier to like and believe these films.
And what in the world, Aditya, is Mahesh Sabadla? Please tell us more. It's like a vigilante action drama.
Man, I will tell you one thing. Mahesh Badla is a film that has been, I think, been ready for now a good 5 years. It was made in 2018, 19. Actually, 19 we completed. To 18 we shot. This is a film shot before Unad, and it was produced by Viacom. And somehow, kind of, they felt that they shut down their when we were kind of making the film. They shut down their Marathi department, and then they felt it was not a film that they thought will do great in the theaters because that those 3 4 years Marathi films were not doing well in theaters at all. And they said, "Are
What
Marathi कुछ
genre
नहीं
is
चल रहा
this
है."
film in?
This is an official adaptation of Maheshinte Pratikaram. Have you seen Maheshinte Pratikaram?
No, I haven't.
There's a film of Fahad Fazil. It's a slice of life movie.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's the one with the camera. Is that the one?
He's a photographer.
Yeah. Okay.
Have you seen that movie?
I think so. It's a relatively old movie, right? It came out a few years ago.
2012, 13, maybe. I don't know.
Right. I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of.
Okay. I see.
And Viacom had the rights for that film, and I had seen the film and loved it, and I said this could be a very interesting story. That and that time nobody had seen the film, and I felt this is a what a fun story to tell, and people here in Marathi, if you tell it in Konkan, people will really understand, love it, because it's a very simple, like Narbachi Wadi, it's a very simple story, but it's got a big heart, that film. So and the Badla is because this guy kind of gets into a small quarrel, and his chappals come off, and he's beaten up by these boys from outside town, and he swears, takes an oath that he will not wear his chappals till he doesn't get his revenge on them. So all the madness that follows after that in the film was that's why he's Mahesh and Mahesh Sabat. So so for us the Badla was very symbolic. It was not actually a fight Badla. It is where he changes himself, and he also finds a way to kind of get his revenge. But when you say a revenge is sweet, this is that sweet fun film about revenge. This is the very very relatable slice of life film about a comedy about revenge. So it turned out really well. I think the film had we whatever previews and screenings we had done, people had found it very interesting, and it's just so happened that the company who's produced it did not find the merit in releasing it in theaters. So I am trying to get the film out at least on OTT now,
It
where
stars
people could be.
Ankush Chowdhury, right?
It stars Ankush in it. Ankush is the lead, and there are a lot of actors there, but very interesting characters we've gotten hold of, and I'm hoping to get the film out at least on OTT where people will be able to watch it.
Great. Aditya, I think this is a good point to stop our part 1.
If you liked the episode, do consider supporting the show. Your support will help me continue creating content like this. You can find the link for supporting the show in the show notes and on the pod website. Also, do share this episode on Twitter, Insta, or Facebook. And do subscribe, rate, and review the pod wherever you listen to your pods. You can follow me on Twitter and Insta at loveofcinemasf8. Feel free to reach out there or by email with your comments, feedback, and suggestions. You can find my email in the show notes. That's the episode. This is Himanshu signing off. And as always, thank you for listening to the Love of Cinema podcast.